podcast, but I had this idea for like an art bakery.
Tell me more about it.
Should I wait till the podcast?
We're live, baby.
Are you recording this now?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, sweet. All of it. I want the whole thing. So I've always had this idea since watching the movie, I think Stranger Than Fiction, Will Ferrell movie, years ago.
I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, it's great. It's from memory. It's this guy who hears like a narrator over his own life, sort of dictating what's really happening. Yeah, kind of bizarre. Anyway, in it, and my partner at the time, this is like years and years ago, we're watching it and we referred to this woman that he ends up being with as the hot baker, because she was cool, she was raw, she was punk, just like no bullshit, sweaty, awesome, and a baker. And it was just a different perception, I guess, like, you know, Baker's Delight and whatever else puts across this real 1950s kind of like, yeah, up in the morning, singing, birds and all that kind of stuff. But this really, I guess, artistic, roll up your sleeves, get in there, independent kind of artist baker kind of vibe. And I thought a bakery is something it smells good, like from a distance, you're just like drawn in there. It's a sort of thing that people don't necessarily need a reason to go in other than there's something nice to grab a snack or whatever, have a coffee or whatever it is. Because often I think if you're going to try and have something that draws people in from the street, if it's too artistic, people are a bit hesitant. But a bakery is just so safe. Like people, also food is a common thing we all need to eat regularly. So I like the idea of having a cultural hub, an artistic kind of hub, especially in a city that really starts to create culture, which I've been starved of living in Sydney previously. And I think a bakery would be
funny that you say that you put those two phrases together. But I've been starved of Sydney.
Yeah, exactly, man. I do love Sydney in many ways, but culture is not one of its strong points. It just feels so desolate, like in the evening and the weekends, and yeah, you got to search to find that pulse. Whereas if you go to a city like Melbourne or Berlin or New York, it's just like poof, poof. This is pedestrian culture, like it's on its sleeve. And so this idea came to me of having this art bakery, also because as an artist you're often dealing in intangible things. So this is how I feel, at least someone who deals a lot in ideas and words and ephemeral experiences and things like that. Having just an object, I'm like, man, imagine how easy it would be if you just made a bread roll or croissant or a muffin or a cookie, and that was the thing you did, and you just like refined it over years and years. Like that, there's a sense of ease in me, like, wow, it's so finite. It's like, it's a damn good cookie, or like that chocolate you had. Like, I did my thing. And so, yeah, I really like the idea of having, and also Willy Wonka. Like, that's a story I want to be. At various times in my life, I wanted to be Willy Wonka, and I wanted to be Santa Claus, but like a toy maker, this whimsical dude who lives in some out-of-the-way place and rocks up in town once a year and goes like, hey, check these things out, and like improves people's lives.
Saint Wonka.
Saint Wonka.
Remix.
But yeah, I'm thinking something like that. A shop front would be awesome, just to have like a stable place, gradually infusing culture. Because often the things that I do are so like raw. It's like it's a poem, or it's a endurance art public, display of something, performance art, or it's a festival. It's just like potent. Get in there, you got to change. But I think if you've got a place that can become a stable reference point, and you can just gradually infuse an area with the type of culture, I think that could be really effective long term. So yeah, it's on the boiler there, having this art bakery. I think it'd be damn cool.
Is that something that you're going to pop up in Auckland, or where are you thinking?
No, Auckland's just a stopover. It's like a little retreat back to the nest to recalibrate. But I'm thinking more Europe. I mean, maybe Melbourne. I think if I'm going to be in Australia, I will be based in Melbourne. But at the moment, my sights are set on the EU.
Awesome. So let's just rewind a little. And for those of us, those in the tribe, those in the Flow fam who don't know who you are, do you want to just give a quick introduction to Bravo?
Yeah, man. For sure. My name is Bravo Childs. I describe myself as a cognitonaut, so an explorer of ideas. I think all of my artworks stem from ideas, from poetry, from an idea of unlearning our social programming, using play to approach life in a different way. I think a lot of the foundational things that we're indoctrinated into or brought up with the concept of are arbitrary, human invented, and often I think play or games or art experiences are great ways of introducing an alternate reality. So that's generally what I busy myself with. I live a bit of a nomadic lifestyle. I haven't paid rent for the past few years. I travel around trying to inject something unusual and encourage people to dare to do, I guess, what clowns do, which is be the first one to make the mistake, do the ugly thing, do the silly thing, so that we can break through into the bizarre, unusual genius that's just beyond the surface.
Cool, and I imagine that it takes you to some interesting places and into some interesting spaces.
Yeah, I've started to get back into it since being here in New Zealand. I'm actually making a game at the moment called Ripplekin. It's like a quest game.
Slow that down.
And
Ripple what?
Ripplekin.
Ripplekin. Kin as in
yeah,
kindred.
like a ripple in the water, and a kin as in kindred. Yeah. So the idea is to create ripples, and that's like to, get out into life, to expand and to jump your orbit. If we live in these kind of cyclic ways, and it's to meet someone you wouldn't usually meet on your usual habit or your usual daily routine, or go somewhere you wouldn't have usually gone. And it's that idea of, the sliding doors, the fractal possibilities, the different dimensions, etc. So it's trying to get us to go through a door we wouldn't usually have gone through, or run into someone unusual. And so I went for a jog the other day and just saw a van outside someone's house, and I was like, oh, cool, they've got a van. I wonder who that is. And so when I knocked on their door, and this woman was like laughing and singing before she even answered the door. She opened it, and she's like, hey, hello. Her name's Aroha. And I was like, hello, I just saw your van. I wondered who owned it. And she said, oh, well, come in. We just finished a healing. And so I went into her lounge, and there's this dude lying on this massage table. And I was actually wearing the God Queen logo. I was wearing the singlet. And he saw the God Queen logo. No, I was wearing it, not him.
Okay.
That would be amazing if he was wearing it. I was wearing it. And it was you and Alpha in another dimension. No, anyway, as soon as he saw the God Queen thing, he grabbed me straight away onto the massage table and gave me a hug. So just like all usual social engagement out the window. And it's those kind of cool exchanges. And I end up sitting there and chatting with them about life and all sorts of things. So that's an example of me just sort of starting to play test this idea of flow. And it's that unthinking, it's just going, it's in action, and real beautiful serendipities happen when you're not trying to engage through your social conditioning. It's that distinction between thinking and knowing is one of my favorite places to play, and which is, I guess, what flow is all about, is just going with it.
So describe a little bit go into that a bit more. So what would you say is the difference between thinking and knowing, and what's your experience of that concept?
Well, for me, my experience of knowing is quite conceptual, all-encompassing, immediate, and there's a certainty to it. When you start getting into thinking, it involves a bit more of the mental mechanics, a bit of more of the calculations, the analysis, which then starts to get factored into, bits of your ego or your hopes, your desires, all these kind of other things. And it actually takes a while. There's a lot more doubt in there. Oh, give me the night to think about it. It's kind of like more complicated and confusing. But I really liked the concept that something is complex to the degree that you're not fully facing it. And we come back to, I find that, even people who are trying to have spiritual enlightenment or, evolve, I don't necessarily think that going up makes things more complicated. I think as you expand, they can actually reduce down to a simplicity. And so the knowing and the thinking for me comes down to a simplicity and immediacy. I don't think time is necessarily a solver. I don't think time heals all wounds, as some people say. And I don't think time or ruminating, deliberating on things necessarily means you're going to make a better decision. If you're in a really open, liquid lightning flow state place, I think you can actually make very sane, long-term, balanced decisions, which will be holistically well for yourself, those involved, the environment, etc., in an instant. And those are the kind of decisions that, maybe extreme sportsman needs to make. I think they're in your passionate moment of creation. If you're a conductor or you're an artist, you just, you see it, you see the thing you're going to paint, or when you're a freestyler, you just get the word. So I do believe that's more in the knowing. And it's like you're actually you're circumnavigating the mental mechanics, and it's just going from a point of consciousness into a point of direct engagement, action, decision. And I think that can be very healthy and expansive.
Ooh, and again, talking about where that's taken you, places. Can you tell us a little bit about where that concept and embodying that has taken you?
Totally. Yeah. One of the big ones was I was in New York, and we'd had this big night where we'd ended up, there's a group of us, 8 of us, we ended up down on the street, just walking into shops, like talking to people, stopping cars, just this full, like, tear down the walls. Let's have integrity. Let's not just let things go by unnoticed. Let's engage. And so that was the kind of decision I'd made. And I think a day or two later, I was on these trains in New York, and I was literally just going from one to the next. I didn't know where they were leading. I was just like, get off one, get into the next. And even for myself, being a performer for most of my life and done a lot of communication training and, love the idea of breaking social boundaries, I still need to warm up and sometimes and just okay, let's do this. But then as soon as you sort of step over that boundary and start engaging, start breaking the silence, it really flows, and it's very innate. I think it's quite a simple thing just to start to engage human to human. So I was doing that from train to train, just sort of getting on, saying, hey, everybody, my name's Brian Child. I'm an artist from Australia. I'm traveling around and trying to meet as many new people as I can. I believe that there are so many solutions, even right here in this carriage. There's probably someone with a surplus, someone with a deficit, and you just don't know it. You're sitting right next to each other. I think it's a travesty, the story, the lies that are being sold to us through the media, through the news. It's alienating us from each other. It's creating this idea of the other being the rapist or the racist or the war general dropping bombs on civilians, etc. And I look at that story, that depiction of humanity, and I'm like, that's not me. I don't like that species. And therefore you walk out into the street and you go, oh, you're one of them. You're the other, whatever that articulation or delineation is. And that is the terrible lie. It's not true. I've traveled around, I've backpacked, and people, will warn me about the other, but I don't come across them. Humanity is actually quite humane, and we want the best for each other overall. So this is the kind of stuff that I was just saying, boom, 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 boom. And I have beautiful responses. People will come up to me and, give me their bit of creator art or encourage me, or someone said that they've just left a job that they really didn't want to do, but their parents were getting hard on them because they didn't have money now. And just basically people confiding in me, just these random strangers, at how they were trying to break out, how they were trying to create their own life. So after doing this for, I'm not sure, maybe an hour or so, I was really in what I would consider quite a flow state. So I got off a train, and it was this really interesting visual concept I got. I felt like I saw it, but it wasn't really what I was looking at in front of me, because I was basically saw this long, long, long tunnel, like way further than the station that I was in, or at least a concept of a direction to travel. And I just had this concept, 2 concepts: A, that I should vocalize, and B, that I should walk. And so I just started to make a sound, like any sound. I was like, and it just came out as an om. Like, omming is not a practice that I was engaging in at the time. It just came out, That's kind of like repetitive sort of thing. And I was like, cool, I'm going to just walk in this direction. So I walked towards this thing, but eventually the space ran out. There was a wall, so I had to go out of the train station. And I was like, cool, I'm just going to keep walking in that direction. And as soon as I got out into the open, I perceived roads to be quite different. I was like, well, why are we carving up our urban space with all these dangerous channels, with these big metal things that can hit us all the time? We're constantly being shepherded in, or we're worried. I'm like, I don't want to worry about roads. I'm just going to walk. So I just started to walk, whether it was pavement or it was road, I was just walking. And then I was like, wow, it's so beautiful. People are just like moving around me. I'm just going to walk straight. And for a moment, it was like this beautiful choreography of people crossing here, going forward, around. And it was just effortless. Didn't need to stop for cars or people or anything like that. And then there's some guys on the side, and they're like, oh wow, I want some of that energy. This guy put out his hand and like gave him a high five, and it was really weird. It was flowing, man. It was just like it was going with intuition. It was expressing myself. There I am walking through New York City, just walking straight, bombing. And then the weird thing was I started to get this physical manifestation. It felt like someone had, this is at the time I tried to express it to people afterwards. It felt like someone had embedded a mobile phone in my forearms and had recorded it. It just started to be like physical, tangible vibrating in my arms. Like, what the hell is this? And so I kept going, and it felt like I was generating this energy. And just intuitively, I sort of made this shape, kind of like that. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's just kind of like holding this.
If you stand back a bit, you could probably see.
Yeah. So it's probably like a qigong thing or whatever. But I was basically that kind of shape there. So I was walking, and I just had this concept of to intuitively draw my hands in like that to sort of hold this energy I was generating, so that it could be used or something like that. But the weird thing was, it almost, I'm not sure if you've ever felt like your muscles or tendons have been zapped with energy, or like they're being drawn involuntarily, taut. So my arms started to be like actually drawn like that. I couldn't actually straighten them anymore. It was actually just like locked in that position. And then my mouth, it felt like someone was like attaching electrodes, something like that, around here somewhere. And it was sort of drawn into this like O kind of shape while I was umming.
And you're walking the whole time.
I'm walking the whole time. I'm walking through New York.
Just looking like a mad person, just a regular New York madman.
Totally New York, man. And which is what I thought. So I'm like, oh man, I better call someone, because people will think I'm having a fit or I'm crazy, something like that. They'll arrest me. I'll end up in a psych ward or something. So I get my phone out like this. I'm like trying to dial. I'm like, hey, Ohan. I called my friend Ohan. It was either Ohan or Siri. I was like, I'm down in New York. I need someone to come. It was bizarre, but I basically got a friend to meet me in there because I didn't know what's going to happen. But I could feel if I kept going, it was just like building and building. So then I ended up sitting down on the pavement outside like McDonald's or something. And then my head started to get drawn back and up. And then I was like going out. I felt like sort of like a lotus kind of opening up like that. And then, everyone just walking around, sort of ignoring me. But then this homeless guy came up, and he's like, "Man, are you all right?" And I just sort of like, yeah, like, oh, and I just sort of explained at this stage, I'm like, I'm just going to stop doing this thing so that, I can engage with this guy, and I don't know how far it's going to go. So I started to talk to him, and he just started to impart all this beautiful wisdom about how, in the cold, because it was cold, I was barefoot, and it was in New York, I started getting cold, and he started to impart beautiful survival knowledge. So, it's okay to allow the body to get cold. It can help with inflammation, just allow it to happen. They said, a lot of people come to New York to speed up their evolution. It's a real crossroads. So just take all the learning. You won't always understand everything you see or you hear, but it'll come back when you need it. He was telling me how to find water in nature. He was recommending a certain type of martial art. And he said, I can see, the way that you're living. If you go and study this, I think it was like Tiger Crane or something, type of martial art, he said, you'll understand the underlying thing. He said, sometimes people pay, for their little weekly hobby of learning this martial art, but they're not actually understanding the purpose. So you go and learn this, and then you'll be able to teach it, and it'll be a key survival thing for you. So real beautiful kind of survival stuff, just imparting straight away. And then shortly after that, a friend of mine arrived and then was talking, just helping me diffuse some of this energy. He's like, man, you're just building up through the and you're just building up too much energy in your body. You need to release it. You're like getting greedy on that universal juice. And I loved him. He was right in the middle of this New York pavement. He was just like, cool. So breathe in and out. And he was just like helping me just to release energy. People walking past us going like laughing, what he's doing. But he's like, his name's Ohan, and he's also out there thinker, and he was just beautifully, totally disregarded any kind of social inhibition. It was just like helping me. And in that moment, I mean, two things happened. One was that I was still determined to follow that path of walking. And second, I started to get a glimpse. I'm not saying I fully had access to, but I started to get a glimpse of different, what would you call it? Like a strata or echelon or realm or something that I feel many people probably engage in. I'm not saying you have to be disembodied. to exist there. Like you can be just normal human, but I felt like when I started to breathe and sound and move like that, it was almost like I started to be more visible to certain people. Like people were reaching out or chatting to me or came up to me. And it's almost like there's different realities. And when you start to, you could call it your vibration or whatever it is. It's almost like you were invisible and then you suddenly stepped into a room and start to harmonize with them. And this homeless guy was talking about that as well, saying, they saw what you're doing. And he had this concept of some people wanting to help me and some people wanting to hinder me. There's some other weird things happen. Like this one guy came up and started shouting at us and jumped up and like slammed the sign near us, and the homeless guy was saying, man, look, his ancestors were sharks. Like just the way he was moving, he had like the upturned nose, black hair, moving through the city. It was a very strange time, and I think the catalyst was me being in the flow state, me not thinking, just going from one train to the next, communicating effusively, connecting through purpose. I believe what I was saying to these people. My concept of isolation started to dissolve because I was talking to so many people on the trains, and then I acted on the impulse of just sounding and walking, and that then actually led me to crossing America, not using any money. I walked out of New York. I tried to walk out that night, but I was cold. I had not prepared. I had no shoes. In the end, I was just walking. It probably got to like 11, 12 at night. I found like an old plastic bag because I know, it keeps in body moisture and temperature. So like I ripped up this bag. I was wearing this like plastic bag, walking barefoot through New York. And I stopped and talked to this one woman, and she's trying to help me with directions. Like, how do I walk out of New York towards Los Angeles? Like general direction. And just in that direction until you hit the ocean. And she was nice, and she said, like, but just to let you know from the outside, some people might get the wrong idea about you, like carrying this plastic bag, walking around, like. And so in the end, it ended up being like 2 or 3 a.m. And then I found myself in some train station. I didn't have any money. I didn't want to use money. It was this whole concept of like, we don't need this fallacy, this arbitrary unit. And then there's some people who were legitimately struggling with reality, like, what's happening here, and calling out and like rocking, and it was just me and like my plastic bag, and I was like, damn, maybe I need to rethink this. This is not my place. This is like, I'm out of flow now. Like it was going so beautifully, and then I just like hit a snag. So I ended up going back and crashing on a friend's couch, and I took a day or two to prepare. Actually, this time packed a bag and headed out and walked out of New York and hitchhiked and basically traded poetry, web development, installation art and things like that to get myself from New York to LA.
So cool.
So yeah, that's a story of where flow took me. It wasn't as long as you think. It's probably like a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. But I did a lot of walking, hitchhiking, and then I ended up getting across a couple states to Cleveland, Ohio, and met this awesome couple who then kind of took me in, and they had a shop, and I did this like the poem of Cleveland. I did a big installation for the shop window, and they actually flew me then in exchange for that from there to LA. So I didn't actually go by land the whole way, but I made my way there through art as a currency.
Amazing.
And I continued doing that in LA. We were cruising around there and just going and trading art and songs and different things to get food. And we were there for 3 months, and I'd never once.
Who was
Alpha and I.
Awesome.
Yeah, and didn't once pay for accommodation that whole time. So yeah,
amazing. Those are possibilities. And what has been the biggest takeaway from that little adventure? What's stuck with you? What's that been the thing that's like, that's either a big lesson or a big takeaway?
Just to start, I've found time and time again that when you step out into the unknown, a stepping stone appears. And I think it's important not to have a fixed idea as to what that stepping stone needs to look like. Like when I was traveling, I wanted to go south, and the first person who picked me up was going north. So I was like, cool, this is where I'm going. So it's like going with the flow and understanding that there's that beautiful quote by Jim Carrey, which is an amazing speech he gave at the Vedic University. But it was something like, I'll just paraphrase, but it's like, you've got to ask the universe for what you want, start working towards it, and then release how it comes to be. So you conceptualize, you have a basic underlying intention, and then you start acting in that direction. And then from that point, it's just like, cool, you just go, you mold, you flow, you adapt, and you will find those precise qualities in whatever eventuates. So if you have a particular thing of like, oh, I want to be in a jazz bar in New Orleans and blah, you might find that in Cleveland, Ohio, in a couple's little shack near a veggie bush or whatever. You can have the same qualities of experience, or you can arrive at the same place through a different channel. So yeah, that's the key takeaway, is just start. We live in a world that's much safer than all the fearful stories tell us. People are a lot more humane, and especially when you approach from a position of understanding and openness, people want to be heard. And if you listen to people and let them know that you're heard, they will just then try and serve you in any way that you can. So that really helps. And also being playful, taking a playful approach. I was on Staten Island, which is only just outside of New York, for 2 days, and I could not get a lift. And I was like, that night was damn cold. I ended up walking to a laundromat and just trying to be warm near the dryers, which were going 24 hours, like, some warmth. And then I remember actually calling Alpha. I'm like, maybe I'm going to go back to New York. And she's like, no way. Like, you set out to do this. You can't. She's like, you can't violate yourself. You had such a clear decision. You've got to do this. And she brought me back to my own medicine of play. She's like, be playful. Like, you got to, that's the solution. And so like after 2 days of not getting a ride, I hung up from that call and I started to dance roadside. And literally within 15 minutes, I had a lift. And it works, like playful buoyancy, something about it, man, something about that vibe, something about the flow, what you attract, or who you become more real to. Like I said before, it's almost like you're invisible, then you're visible. Maybe people literally couldn't see me there cold and hungry on the side of the road. Suddenly I'm flying, and this rebel dude, there's such a rebel, just like, yeah, if I get in here, mate, and yeah, just like some like 1970s, total, probably like Hell's Angel, just awesome. Right, I'll give him a lift, Yeah. And so, yeah, play definitely allows things to flow too.
So play, going further into that concept of play, and you say that you're a game designer. That's one of the ways you've been spending your time is designing games, and you said this recent game of Ripplekin, and yeah, I just am curious to know more about what that means, because if someone goes game design, you make PlayStation games,
Totally.
Yeah, so go a bit deeper into that.
Well, I mean, games themselves can apply to so many things, and I love also developing video games. I have studied that, and I do play with game engines. And as far as artistic technology goes, just for a moment, game engines, I think, are the most exciting artistic tool we have access to, like the most exciting one, because it encompasses cinematography. It encompasses any form of two-dimensional art, painting, or any kind of visual art you can have. It encompasses also sound design and also soundtrack, so music. It encompasses acting, script writing, interior design, world rules, sociology, history. Like, it's just amazing. It's the story engine.
And then there's the other aspect of the consumer, the playful, the playing, the skill, the strategy, and all that stuff as well.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of skills are being developed, and I think they could be potentially applied in better directions. And sometimes, it's cool to chill out and have some fun as well. That's a nice human facet of our experience. But other things like, open sourcing medical problems where, it's like, here's this DNA strand. How does this relate to that? And you have like all these people all around the world coming and playing, using like a video game kind of interface and solving these things. Like, these things have actually happened. It's open sourcing and leveraging the resource we have of our interest, of our play, our problem solving, of all these kind of skill sets. So yeah, I do definitely like video game development. I think also mobile devices, your smartphone is it's ubiquitous point of technology in everyone's pockets, and it does connect people. So I love nature, and I love connecting back in a human, visceral kind of way, but I also think there's amazing potential through things like the Internet of Things, I think that, the internet at the moment has an amazing resource, this huge pool of data, of facts and figures, a lot of photos of what people eat and selfies and stuff like that, but also habits and routines. We're always checking in. It's this amazing untapped journal of human behavior like never before. And I think probably the true value of the internet will come to light in future decades when people can data mine that stuff using big data, better use it to leverage, to understand what we're actually doing. And I think one of the next big steps in that is the Internet of Things. So the Internet of Things is essentially connecting the physical world the way that computer servers connect the data world. And so it's things like temperature gauges and air pollution kind of measures and
everything.
Smart everything, smart everything. And it all feeds into the brain, whatever that particular server is, and then people can leverage it. So it's sensors and actuators. So you get a particular input, and then you can use that to make a smart home or change your car or do gardening or whatever the sort of thing is. So
this is all the wearables thing that, the watches and whatnot. And
measuring your heart rate. And it's amazing. So it's going to be a point where we can almost have like ESP, like extrasensory perception, to perceive what the planet, or at least the people around us, are experiencing. And you've got, cyborgism movement at the moment. I met a guy called Neil Harbison and Moon Ribis when I was traveling in New York, and they started the Cyborg Foundation. And he was born colorblind, and he has
repeat that name again.
Neil Harbison and Moon Ribis. They're based in New York. They're from. They're not from Spain, but it's the political. I can't remember. There's another country which is trying to have its own national identity, to be sovereign, but it's near Spain. Anyway, that's where they're from, but I'm pretty sure they're sort of based. They do a bit of traveling through Europe and stuff, but I knew them in New York, and they started the Cyborg Foundation, and they've also started up another company now. It's not called NorthSense. NorthSense is the new thing they've developed. So their product is basically this implant, and it tells you where true north is. So it's like, I don't know, certain animals have that. It's like an internal compass, so you know which way you're facing.
It tells you, and then you have to read it, or how does it tell you? Does it vibrate? No,
I think it just vibrates, maybe. So it's a subdermal implant. So you actually get it embedded in your skin, and you can tell somehow, I'm assuming it's vibration, when you're facing north. Yeah. And so this is based on some of their own personal biohacking.
Called NorthSense.
NorthSense.
Yeah, cool.
That's the product called NorthSense, yeah. I think their new company might be called Cyborg Nest, but I'm not sure. So Moon Ribis has an implant in her elbow, and she can sense earthquakes. So she's a dancer, and she has this one piece called Waiting for Earthquake. So whenever there's a seismic activity on the earth, an earthquake, she will dance comparative or relative to the size of the earthquake. That's like one of her art performance pieces. And then Neil Harbison.
I think I've heard of this woman. Yeah, I think I've seen a video on there.
Yeah, cool. And Neil Harbison has this little antenna at the top of his head. It works through bone conduction. It's embedded in his skull, and he can actually hear color. So he was born totally colorblind, but then through the different sound waves, or the notes, the tones that different colors make going through his sensor, he'll know what color he's looking at. So he makes artwork sort of in alignment with that. So yeah, they're really...
That's just got me thinking random, just to change the subject a tiny bit. I just called this moon person a woman, but now that she's a cyborg, I'm like, is that the right terminology?
Yeah, that's right. Evolution, all that.
Gender come in there, you know?
Totally. Well, I mean, he was saying that...
I probably should say that they're a cyborg, shouldn't I?
They, yeah. Well, he was saying, Neil Harbison was saying that he didn't feel like he had an extra appendage, or it wasn't a tool, a technology, it was part of him. It was, I guess like, dolphins or different bats or who have sonar or whatever. It's just an extension of themselves. And the brain actually starts to correlate different senses when they're triggered at the same time enough. So because now he's actually had this bone conduction implant for so many years, I think it's something like the visual part and the sonic part get triggered simultaneously regardless of which one is being activated. So he's actually creating a link just through repetition. And so he's proactively...
Wire together kind of concept.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So he's sort of totally remapping himself, and I think it's just going to happen more and more. I mean, there's a whole gender binary thing which is being dissolved, and now with whether it be addressing a disease or a physical disability or a mental kind of need, like I need this antenna or whatever it is. I think we're going to continue to adjust our physical thing so it better aligns with our personal identity that we feel, irrespective of the body. So yeah, it's exciting times.
and just talking games again. Yeah, can you give us a brief outline of what that is? Like, so
totally, yeah.
What does that involve? Like, is that a daily thing for you? Like, what do you do with it?
Yeah, so for me, there's definitely daily practice which comes into being. I mean, I'm drawn to martial arts, and I've studied a number of different methods or systems, but I really like the concept that Bruce Lee came up with of Jeet Kune Do, which is the formless form, and really trying to come back to a rewilding aspect of your intuitive wisdom and the body, learning through the body and that sort of thing. So I just call it Play Chi. So Play Chi, to be honest, I probably don't do that as much of the daily practice as I used to, but at the time it was simply going out and moving freely, allowing body to flow, engaging with the environment. So that was a play aspect of it. That was kind of a daily practice. But at the moment I'm looking at games in the realm of ARGs, which is alternate reality games. And they're primarily set in the real world. So it's like a theatrical experience where you, as a game designer, create a certain set of rules or parameters. And then often there's a buy-in. So unlike a lot of other games, like a PlayStation game or whatever, where you try and sell it to people, ARG designers often give little, breadcrumbs, it could be a little flash on a website, or it could be a little hidden logo somewhere. You want people to almost have a sense of discovery when they find this game. It could be an email trail. I did one in Melbourne where I put a bunch of posters around the city just with a kind of enigmatic figure and just an email address, and people are like, what the hell is this? There's some kind of buy-in. And then once you do that, you generally send people on a sort of like a mission, like a treasure hunt or whatever it is, and they go and complete real world activities. And for that reason, you can bring a bit of tech into it. Things like, augmented reality. I mean, Pokemon Go and things like that, or geocaching, where you have different things pointed along different parts of the map. And then people can go out with helps of their smartphones or whatever and actually find things, maybe get hints, maybe engage with actors who are indistinguishable from just people in the city, whatever. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that I have been playing with. It fed into New Kind Festival as well. That was in the lead up to a festival I just ran this year, where there was this premise of these people leaving mainstream society to go off grid and train up together. And in this narrative, we were going to leave Earth together. But Ripplekin is a little bit less fictional. With this particular game, it's really just getting people to do activities in the real world, and in that case they're happenings. It's not just a theatrical immersive experience. It's you're in life dealing with real people. It's actually happening. It's like it's tricking people into living bravely.
Is it like a, what do they call these things, like a flash mob or something like this, like a bunch of people getting together at one particular moment in time and place? Or
No. This one can be played by yourself, or it could be played with friends. I've got I've got this little manual here with me, which is my game journal. But essentially, I broke it down into 6 steps. The first step was choosing your suit. So your suit is kind of like hearts, diamonds, whatever. But in this case, there are 6 areas of life that you play in. The first one being self. The second one being love. The third one being voice or expression. The fourth one being money. The fifth one being, space, and the sixth one being experience. So you choose what area you're going to focus on for that playing. Then you pick your story card, which is like an oracle card, which assigns you a role. And then you pick a state card. So the state card is your objective. You're going to try and shift whatever journey you're going to go on. You've got to try and shift it into a particular state. And then you get siblings, and siblings are your component parts. And this is the part where it gets customized to the player. So if you want to really focus on building your art skills or your money skills or your interpersonal skills or your gardening skills, whatever it is, you chuck those elements in as siblings. These are the components you're going to use. And then your last one is your signature. So before you play, it's like doing an RPG, like a role-playing game where you create a character. So you really articulate what the signature of your character is, and then you make sure you give it that flavor. And so, and then also one of those is space. So the way you find your space is you work out the scale you want to play on. It could be as small as your house, as big as the world. It doesn't matter. So you put out a map. You can print it off Google Maps or whatever you want, or you can just draw it up, your local suburb, whatever. And then you simply roll dice, one giving you a number on the x-axis, one giving you a number on the y-axis, and it pinpoints you to a place that you have to go. And then you take your story card, you take your state card, you take your siblings, which are your objects, and you go to that place and you try and shift it to your objective state.
And if that place is like in the water somewhere, like you just roll again.
Oh, I don't know. I guess you just have to maybe build a boat. I don't know. That's the chaos of it. Who knows where it's going to end up?
Yeah, cool. And so some of those components, I guess, can you break down what is in a game for us? Like, how do you go about designing that? Does it have to have particular component parts, or and leading into that as well, like, are there other game designers that you have a community? Is this a whole underground movement, or is it above ground? And I just know nothing about it. Like, what's the tell me more about the community of game designers?
I think it's definitely still burgeoning. It's new, but there's like a flurry of different types of game designers. I think game design itself has been around for centuries. I mean, you've got really famous old games, of course, like chess and other tribal rolling stone games and different sort of things. It's an activity that we've been engaged in for as long as I know. We've been alive as communities, but now definitely a lot of the game design does focus around video games. It's quite a big indie scene. The tools have become more accessible now, so you don't have to be a big AAA studio. So there's a lot of sort of Facebook groups and blogs and competitions, like monthly words get given and people design games. You've got a few different types of game genres. You've got pen and paper games. So they can just be any kind of scorekeeping or rule or story or writing sort of ones you do, just gather around with some friends and you've got your pen and paper. You've got board games, of course. You've got video games. You've got things like D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, which is like a role-playing game where there's a dungeon master who guides your story, and then you have a character with certain capabilities and powers and that sort of thing. So there's
live action role-playing.
Yeah, this is like when you just get together, and it's like storytelling. You could do it online, or you could get together in these little dens, these storytelling dens, and just sort of have a fictional experience. And then you've also got theatre companies. You've got places like Secret Cinema in the UK. You've got there's a production called Sleep No More in New York. And so some of these, that's created by Punch Drunk. And so Punch Drunk's director is trying to create these immersive things where you participate. So we're not just in the dark, sitting there, inactive, passive observers, but you actually inhabit and are a catalyst for change in the fictional world. And it's exciting. It's a bit dangerous. Sleep No More is basically Macbeth done over an entire building, and you rock up and you can go to any floor you want, go into any room you want. You can look through drawers, find different aspects of the characters' lives, bear witness to things that no one else sees, all that kind of stuff. And then Secret Cinema, basically you rock up, you don't know what movie you're going to watch, and then you are swept away into the world of the movie. So I think Shawshank Redemption was one of them, and they're picked up on a prison bus and taken to an actual prison to watch the movie, and you get treated like a prisoner and stuff. So yeah, people are experimenting. It's definitely a frontier. I don't know of a massive sort of group.
What do they call these things? Can't remember what they called. Like, you go into a room, or you get
escape room,
yeah, and you have to get out.
Yeah, escape room. Yeah, I'm actually working on one of those at the moment for a festival that's coming up in Melbourne, called The World Beyond. So yeah, they're definitely being incorporated into a lot of the more mainstream things, and I think festivals are a great place for that, because basically it's a bunch of people rocking up, not a lot of expectations other than let's do some cool, freaky, fun stuff and not live like we normally do. So they're great testing grounds for a lot of these things. So that's what New Kind Festival enabled us to do to some extent. But even having a frame of a festival, I would like to dissolve and just have it in society at large, because that's the place that we really need to change. And I think that as artists, we bring visions to life. we have communication skills which can convey ideas and make them so palpable that you can almost sense it. You totally get drawn into it. And it's a gift, but it's also a responsibility to convey the type of cultural narrative that we need to be thinking with. And for too long, that was in the hands of, mass dissemination and propaganda and very controlled ways of education. But more and more, our education faculties and institutions are evolving and becoming more free and not as didactic. And our religions we're being a bit disenfranchised, or not. I mean, that's a generality. A lot of people are still very evangelical, but hopefully, with our access to communication, we can see that there's not one illuminated religion or race and everyone else is primates. We start to now see beyond the borders. And so all these forms of story, it's all storytelling, education, religion, all these sort of things are forms of stories. So I think we're now in a very empowered space in modern day where the old stories are dissolving and our potential to tell new stories is just growing exponentially. So it's a good time to be an artist and to rethink of what our role is within society.
And I guess that would be the aim of your game, like the aim of your game design. You just described
Absolutely
to us. Yeah, cool. And this idea of, you mentioned, I'm just going to read some of these notes I had here. So using that play, you've written here, you focus on using play to access the human faculties like intuitive adaptability, extrasensory awareness, and reframing foundational beliefs. I guess this is the aim of your game design or game building. So that would be the crux of it, would it?
Exactly. I mean, who knows what I would do if I was in a different society, in a different period of history. I don't know. I think that I love beauty. I love physics. I mean, for me, physics actually gives me more pleasure than any other thing. I can freestyle. I can do characters. But a simple thing like if you after you've been shopping and you go in a parking lot and you spin a trolley around while it's gliding in a direction, that kind of like... those kind of simple little pleasures just fill me with so much joy at witnessing the beauty of this construction, of the way things interact and momentum. I really like the idea of animation, the word animate, like anime is spirit. It's to infuse things with spirit through movement. And I think that's really how the world sort of works. Any circulatory system, or we think that things are sentient to the degree that they kind of respond to us. And so I think that's probably what I'd be caught up in. If I arrived in a world that was just like, yay, everyone's happy and eating organic food and loving and growing in harmony, I would just probably go around spinning trolleys and just giggling. But I arrive in this place and I'm like, people are really upset, disconnected, they hate each other, and we've got this warped sense of possession and this fearful grip on this control. We're trying to control everything so we can predict everything. And so I feel in this society at this time, the best thing I can do is point out how fragile this silly construction is, and show by taking a step out, being an explorer, going over this, crossing a country without using money or whatever it is, and coming back, hey, look, I survived, I didn't die. I don't know where my rent's coming from, but a hole in the floor didn't open up. And just basically, which is very much the jester or the jongleur, the clown kind of role, is pointing out that, the emperor's new clothes, like the emperor's naked, like, this is silly. So that's definitely the intention, is to not necessarily tear down society, because society itself will always exist. It's basically people living together, but allowing the antiquated systems to just be dropped by the wayside so that a new, more vital, expansive, intuitive, symbiotic system can take its place. So that's definitely the intention. Awesome. Is to set up, is to propose or hypothesize or present a fictional or artistic system so people can play it. And eventually, if it gets so good that, maybe the game actually has its own economy, or it's fulfilling people's needs, like belonging and love and all these sort of things, maybe eventually the game could just replace society itself.
Mm-hmm. Is there anywhere that is taking these concepts on and actually running with it? Like, have you seen these concepts in action? Where I know there's communities like Dumb and Her kind of community. I don't know if that's something that you've heard of, or like these kind of ideas, or you might have these kind of communes or something. Is this some similar ideas that they're taking on, or is it a little bit different? Or
I know, yeah, definitely. That's those kind of communities are good cases in point where they're literally just stepping out of society and going, hey, there's a better way to do things. So I think that definitely correlates to what I'm trying to achieve. But no, I don't know of anything sort of city-based. And I'm really interested in cities. I think they're amazing constructs. I think they're only going to grow because, you know, populations keep growing, and we've got to really reconceive of how we can live together, how we can better utilize space, how we can have something that's somehow still connected to nature, even though we've got all these man-made things around each other. We can still definitely spread out and maybe activate more rural areas as other cultural hubs. But I don't personally know of people really taking this kind of approach of a game. However, there are, of course, other economic things like, you know, gifting economies or cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin or time banks where people actually trade time in different ways through participation. So there's definitely types of games or, you know, systems being tested which are alternatives. But I don't know. I know of a fictional version. There was a movie. I only saw the trailer of it, but it was kind of like, you know, a mixture between Hunger Games and a reality TV show where people were players, and they basically went out and they had this group of audience members who could suggest different things. And a friend of mine and I had this idea, a guy called Bengali had this idea years ago because he was traveling for many years. And he said, maybe I can be like an avatar or a character. And then the audience chooses, should I get on the plane to London or Berlin? Or should I, you know, do this or should I eat that or whatever it is? And that'd be awesome. And so this movie, I saw this trailer and that's pretty much what they put out, is that this new sort of superstar was created of these gamers or these players or whatever they called in the movie, where they'd actually go out and you'd have an audience and they'd sort of dare you, oh, go up and do this. And they made it a bit, you know, teen love movie. It's like, oh, go up and kiss him. And then she kisses him and they end up in love and they go and play together. But so I think, you know, these things are being forecast, and often that's the way it works, where you might have something like, you know, George Orwell, you know, 1984 or Brave New World, or these kind of fictional sci-fi predictions about humanity, and then we sort of gradually end up living in a world exactly like that. So it's being forecast through movies like the one I mentioned, but I don't know of anyone playing it on a wide scale. I know it is also being used in marketing, and I mean, you know, that's a place
that
gamifying interactions. Yeah. Like there's a pretty successful Volkswagen one looking at activating public spaces where they turned a stairwell. They looked at a stairwell and an escalator next to each other. Everyone was going up the escalator. When they turned the stairs into piano keys that actually made sound, all of a sudden all these people started to go up the stair to play music. And another one was to do with rubbish and encouraging people to throw stuff in the bin. And they had this sound. It's just a simple sound. They went when you chucked something in the bin, and then people
hearing you do it.
Yeah, it's so fun. And then some people started to go around and collect other people's rubbish and put it in the bin just to sort of create the sound. So little things like that are being used. I was talking about the, you know, the whole virtual reality kind of thing. There was one beer brand who got people to, some kind of Irish beer or something like that, and they got people to put on this virtual reality goggles. But then while they put the goggles on, they actually built or moved a real world pub around them. So when they then took the goggles off, they're like, whoa, shit. It was like they were just actually in the virtual reality. They're in Ireland all of a sudden. So yeah, I mean, marketing is a place where art and commerce comes together. So they're proving it's, you know, it's having good effect. People are interested and it's playful. So those are areas that I know people are using this kind of gamification. I mean, there's a lot of other productivity apps as well that give you, you know, little points or bonuses. If you've got like a Tamagotchi kind of thing, you keep it alive by doing what you kind of want to do. So yeah, it's
Duolingo, language learning, things like this as well.
Exactly, little rewards, and we do it, man. Like this is why certain games are so addictive, because we like that feedback, that dopamine hit, that kind of validation. And I think often in games or with a game structure, we get the feedback we need that validates our activities. Whereas in real life, sometimes it takes weeks or months to have an effect, and sometimes you never even see that effect. It's that whole butterfly effect kind of concept of something happens over here, and due to all these cause and effect chain reactions, something across the other side of the world can happen. And unfortunately, that doesn't make you feel like you get acknowledged if you with a author of something that you don't even get to see happen. Whereas a game structure feeds that. It lets you know, oh, hey, something happened because you did a thing. And that's why I think games are so effective, because you feel like, wow, I created an impact in this world. And that's what we all want to do ultimately, I think, is to have an effect and prove that we were here.
Interesting. It's a super fascinating subject. Could go on for hours about it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But yeah, I sort of want to go further into what that kind of future is. You mentioned New Kind. I know you're involved in a thing called The Town. Maybe share a little bit more about those interactive kind of festivals, and also what's the future. You started talking about Orwell, and if you were to paint a picture of a future in 20, 40, 50, 60 years, what would be what would be involved in that kind of world that you see?
Sure. I like the idea of diversification, and I think that, to be honest, we exist currently in a time which is pretty easy. Of course, not everywhere it has luxuries like we do in certain sort of, I guess we call it, developed nations. There's a lot of trauma and hardship, but there are great populations around the world that have a lot of luxury of time and resources. And so I kind of feel like it's a time of diversification. I was chatting to a friend of mine about evolution, and he was under the concept of these cycles that happen, where things get really abundant, like food's everywhere, and temperature is good, and everyone goes around and eats and climbs this and does that and has babies over here with these different other tribe. And, all these sort of this diversification happens. Someone becomes really fascinated with climbing mountains, and someone becomes really fascinated with exploring the sea, and and so we go off into all these different areas. And I think it's kind of a survival trait that when it comes crashing back down and gets really hard again, only certain qualities or characteristics will be viable. So maybe, who knows, if all the oceans suddenly were frozen, all those people underwater, maybe they die, maybe they perish, or maybe those people who've been training in the desert, maybe climate change happens and everything's so hot that only the people that are now used to or have changed their bodies to adapt to hot climates, they survive. So it's kind of like this time of luxury and abundance where I feel like we're diversifying. And you've got people who are going back to like the slow food movement and reconnecting with nature and really exploring that and rewilding, unplugging, getting off grid. And you've got the total opposite as well, which is people who are going totally into technology and urbanization and virtual realities and all those kind of things. You've got people who are totally indulging in, carnal pleasures and the visceral reality and materialism and all this kind of stuff, consumerism, capitalism, possession, all this stuff, building these ridiculous piles of wealth and just living a totally different, ivory tower existence. And you've got these other people who are living a very austere kind of life, monastic life, giving up, luxuries, or going and meditating in a cave, or even exploring completely away from pleasure and indulging in pain, S&M, and or going through to a spiritual place like Wim Hof, the Iceman, who sits in ice. And, a lot of people think that could be, punishment or pain or wanting to be avoided, but he's like, no, this is a window to the soul. So I feel like right now is a time of diversification. And if I was to cast my mind ahead 10 or 20 years, because of the exponential growth, I think, the way we changed over the last 200 years will be achieved in the next, 40 or 50 years, because there's just such a quickening of the way things come about, of our efficiency of production, and also the negative effects as well. If we, a few hundred years, we're going to do a bad thing with a few hundred people, or a few thousand, now we're doing it with millions and billions of people. So the effect will come about quicker. So what I think will happen is that maybe within even my lifetime, there'll be a huge diversification of what people think is the right way of life. And we'll have people totally going and rewilding. We'll have people totally going into the virtual reality and sitting in, apartments totally plugged in with haptic feedback, which is like vibrations, which makes things feel tactile, like rough or slippery, whatever. Indistinguishable realities from the quote-unquote real world. We'll also have an increase in individuals, which is, maybe one of the good things about capitalism, in that an individual now can almost have the same power as a whole nation, whereby you've got people like Richard Branson or Elon Musk or people like that can now launch space travel projects, or can totally change, celebrities that donate millions to infusing a village with solar power, whatever it is. So these individuals can now have the sort of impact that if you centuries ago, only a king or a full nation could have. So I think we'll get these people who are passionate, and we'll create these little islands. I mean, you're seeing it in places like Abu Dhabi in the Middle East, where they're creating entire, not continents, but they're reclaiming land from the ocean, and they're building their own places. So I think that'll continue to happen. And basically we'll have this diversification. And so I think pretty much that's one of the survival characteristics of humanity. And we become fascinated. We geeks, like we geek out on stuff. We have these little niches, and no matter how small your enclave or your clique is, there'll be someone who's more extreme than you. It's like, the world's most tattooed man, or the person who held their breath for the longest, or ran the fastest. This is like what we like to do. We like to compete. So I can see us trying to continue to explore the limitations of our biology through cyborgism and things like that, our mental states, both through physical kind of augmentations, implants, through drugs, hallucinogenics. Maybe it'll be chemicals or plant-based medicines. I can see us continuing to, who knows, maybe we'll start, we can now tap into like the human genome and change, us on a really fundamental level. Maybe we'll start to augment into these, superhuman things. I think they probably were trying to do that back in the Second World War with these like Aryan camps, and like apparently they had like reproductive farms. I don't know how much of this propaganda. This is the story I heard, but breeding these, like we do thoroughbred animals or workhorses or dogs that have certain characteristics. They love water, or they love this or that. Maybe we'll try and breed humans in that kind of way. Interplanetary travel, surely that's going to start happening. Also, with the freedom of information around religions, I think that a few of the things that I've come across, things like Kundalini yoga, and things like tantric rainbow body breath work, and there's different bodies of knowledge. Also, Arakan, which was the Malaysian Royal Guard martial art, which I trained in once, and it looked really beautiful. These things previously were kept away from the general populace, but through the internet and sharing, and also we're no longer deifying these people, these founders who started these things. Like, no. Like, I want to share this. There is no other. There is no evil this or them. I want to tell them of this cool technology I've got. So I think, spiritual practices and religions and meditative styles and martial arts will continue to grow. And so, in 50 years, I think we're going to have a bunch of amazingly diverse freaks. Some of those channels will be potentially hugely destructive. Some of them will be hugely creative. And hopefully we can have a shift away from the very patriarchal, capitalistic, possessive society, which needs to control everything. Because going back to flow, you need some of that natural chaos and cross-pollination and just natural evolution, organic change to happen, to fully explore the outer realms of what's possible. You can't always anticipate everything. So it's like taking off the control of it, taking off the brakes. Some things will get broken. Not everyone's going to have a patent over every damn new invention. And it's not always going to make monetary sense. We can't always think that, is this going to have a dividend? Is this going to have an ROI, return on investment, that's going to make it worthwhile investing? We have to have a bigger, more symbiotic system, holistic understanding of our input, our interaction, how that feeds back into the world that we live in. So I'm really hoping our economics move beyond the kind of interest-based, kind of very reserve bank lockdown kind of system. And it'll be an amazing variety which will span the physical, the mental, and interplanetary dimensions. That is my prediction.
A bit more ecological. Yeah, amazing. It's a lot of that stuff is definitely happening. I'm excited by it as well. Like especially the developments in like biotechnology, and this kind of the smart, smart medicine and smart gene, like what do you call cells being injected, or like if we've got to having computers in my bloodstream. It's pretty exciting, and having
nanobots,
having a wallet in my DNA and a retina scan to pay for things, and this kind of ideas are super exciting.
Yeah, man, it's insane. I think there will be people who will fear that it'll be used to enslave people, and that's always possible. But I don't like the idea of limiting things for fear of the power of a particular tool. And I think that by and large, humanity is more benevolent than it is malevolent. And hackers, man, like that's a thing. We're going to make it. And there'll be some people who try and control it, but there's going to be a great resistance or evolutionary movement that's going to try and pop it open and make it accessible to everyone. So that's what I think we'll try and keep the bastards honest. I think we'll always have that human characteristic, which will hopefully use these evolutions not to enslave each other. And Gary Vee, I was watching an interview with him, and he was saying, that we underestimate, or he was saying that humanity had the worst marketing possible. Like he's saying it's the worst represented brand there is, which I really liked. He said, we constant mass media is constantly making us fear and hate humanity, but really we have the atomic bomb and we could have blown each other up already, or we could just go and shank random people on the bus, or we could but we don't. It happens, but the percentage of times that happens is so minuscule. I don't think we're going to necessarily enslave ourselves. And so, I am hopeful for these kind of ways we can program our own reality. And what I would like to see, though, is that the technology itself becomes, I use this word symbiotic a lot. And I think it's just a beautiful word, like sim together and bio is life. So living together. And it's basically I'm really interested in interfaces. I think when game design or play comes about, it's often that all you're doing is you're creating a HUD, heads-up display, you call it in game design, or a UI, user interface. It's a way that two different things can talk to each other. And that's what game designers do, UX designers, user experience designers. They create a membrane between things that can connect things which were otherwise insulated from each other, and they can therefore nourish each other in different ways. So I would really like our man-made things to be able to interface with natural systems. And I think that in the 1800s, there seems to have been a real boom in a particular direction, which was unfortunately rather heavy and industrial. There was people like, Nikola Tesla and different biological and energetic and physical kind of experiments happening. And there was a real hive, a real hub of all these amazing, mathematicians and different things and, computers, the starting blocks of, clockwork and all that kind of stuff coming into be. And we went down a track which was a very dirty mass production kind of tangent, which led to, Ford Motors and led to electricity being generated through, coal and mining and all these kind of things. But I feel there was another tangent which we didn't really explore enough, which was utilizing, whether it be the electromagnetic field of the planet or using photosynthesis or natural, there's often with technology, all you need is flux. You've got AC and DC, alternating current and direct current. With most generators, all you need to do is for something to rotate and change the poles, positive and negative, all these kind of things. Even though we've got this amazing technology, it comes back down to a very simple thing. And you've got things like the ocean, which are always ebbing and flowing. You've got things like circulatory systems of plants and the amazing, networks formed by fungus between different living entities, sending different types of signals. So there's a lot of energy and information, like a natural internet, happening alongside our human internet, and they're not talking enough to each other. That's why I like the potential within IoT, Internet of Things. And I'd like to see our interfaces to be able to exchange data with trees or with shifting climate conditions or whatever it is, and therefore, even though it sounds scary, I don't want to become a robot. I don't want to have all this shit implanted into me. Maybe it can just be beautiful. Like maybe we can be wearing plants that actually plug into our cardiovascular system and clean our liver, or maybe our computers can be more jelly-like and we just like smear them on trees and then we get data from the whatever's happening in a local area. I don't know. So I think that this future doesn't have to be as sci-fi, noir, cyberpunk, and scary and robotic and alien, as in like not human or not organic.
A bit more Avatar.
I think there's an organic way. Yeah, like that thing where he plugs into his steed, like through the nervous system. Yeah, totally. So yeah, I think we can have, technology doesn't have to be hard, metal, and dirty. It can be quite beautiful and light.
Organic.
It's all about exchange.
Amazing, awesome, brother, and would like to talk more on a different tangent now and talk poetry, talk writing. I know you've been writing a bunch. Tell us about anything that you have coming up, any kind of thing you want to plug, any releases, what's happening for the next little while that you'd like people to know about, just like to share with the peeps.
Thanks, man. Yeah. This is great. It's been a great chat. Really in depth. It was epic. As far as, what was that?
Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
No problem, man. It's beautiful. As far as art and poetry goes, that's always going to be a part of my craft. I mean, the games thing is definitely artistic, but I think the poetry and the words, that's where the ideas first, in the beginning there was the word. It's the first iteration of whatever it becomes after that.
Do you have a little thing you can share? Give us a little thing.
I could only freestyle, really. I don't have any written stuff. Freestyle? All right. Well, do you want to give me a seed word to start with, and I'll freestyle from there?
Avatar and organic.
Avatar, okay. Organic, avatar. Avatar, the tar under my feet is like an avocado peeps. It's just been smeared off. And I know that sometimes we've been swerving off the road into the toffee that's stuck in the back of the fat man's dentures. And I know that's an extension of this comprehension, this mind frame. And sometimes I want to bend the wire. Why are we wired in this way? Why are we a wire? Or am I a? Or are you a? 2R, 3R, 4, we're multiplying, and sometimes I need these pliers to pull that tooth out and start to eat it like popcorn. And now I've got this corn, this little kernel. I'm turning into the internal, the external, the extraterrestrial, terraformer. I'm a former of this planet. Can it be scanned with these eyes and these nodes and these fingers? I feel it is tingling. It's like a new kind of English, and I'm now starting to be the own spanner in this mechanic. I'm under the boot of it, and I'm trying to see how that works, how it hurts. How does it actually feel, the steel? Does it actually have senses? Is it an extension of this tangible form that I identify myself as? I'm self as. There we go. I can keep on going, but that's kind of how my mind works.
I know exactly the vibes, man. I know exactly the vibes.
Yeah, cool exploration. So, as far as my current projects, I wanted to put something out as a bit like an archive, really, because I've been writing for a long time. I started teaching freestyle workshops back in 2004. I had this thing called Outspoken, which happened in Sydney, and every week I got a bunch of people together in Glebe Town Hall, and I made a bunch of games. Actually, I have a thing. I made a thing. I called it Wordology at the time. It was a 50-page manual on how to freestyle, which I created at that time, which I've never put out. And there's a bunch of awesome people from that time have gone on to do other things. Joel Rappaport, who's created Big Village, used to come and freestyle with us. And Tucker, who's in Fundamentals, used to come and freestyle with us. And Missy from Ginger and the Ghost, who's now doing all these sensory kind of dinners and stuff like that, she used to come freestyle with us. And the Tongue, Zenon, who got signed with Obese, I think it was. A lot of these people have gone on, and I feel like there's a story there. There was some really beautiful times in Sydney. I had this gallery in a place called Hibernian House, called the Knot Gallery, which is like an unofficial gallery. I used to go there and have these spoken word nights. And then I was involved in the in Word Wrestling Federation that existed for like 1 year, where we had this like word wrestling happening between Sydney and Melbourne. And then there was a State of Origin.
Tell me about the Word Wrestling Federation. What happened there?
That was basically a federation that I think it was Steve Grimwade and it was a crew that used to do Going Down Swinging. It was him and Lapcat. They were creating this, basically a federation, this crew. It was a new way to slam. So it was basically you'd have teams like you would have in a wrestling kind of ring, and it was like bring a bit of the showmanship to it. And then you would basically go and pair off against different teams, and it was just like a slam. You would just, we didn't actually physically wrestle, but it was just a new framing for that. So it was having different analogies or metaphors. Then there's the whole footy State of Origin. So we did that between Sydney and Brisbane. So yeah, there's a whole history that I was a part of, and I want to journal it. I want to have a little voice, and I'm basically going to collect all the stuff I've written over all these years, and also show the different times I wrote it with. I was also with a group called the Spokes, and we used to go and travel around different festivals, and put it all out as a compendium called Bucket Full of Butterflies. And that's kind of how I feel. Like there's all these fluttery kind of things, and I often create things and get bored of them before they're finished. And so I've just got gigabytes and gigabytes of kind of partly written work, so just stuff I just never bothered to put out. So that is going to come out. It's all written, and it just needs to be sort of edited together and put out. And so I'd like to release that. And I'm probably thinking of maybe... I mean, it could be this year. It's just a matter of what I'm putting my time into, really. It should be pretty soon. Between Bucket Full of Butterflies and then also Ripplekin Game, which I'm actually creating the actual cards. I want to get it produced with proper, dice and the cards, and I should go play test it. That's another big one. And then New Kind Festival is coming up again next year. That's another big one. And then I'm also working with
the New Kind.
That's in the third week of March 2018. It'll be down in Tasmania. So we'll be going from the Wednesday to the Sunday, from the 20-something. I should know that. I'm not sure. But yeah, the third week of March, they'll be down in Tassie. And it'll basically be a post-human boot camp. That's what we want.
Tickets on sale for that? Is that New
They're about to go on sale later this month, actually. Literally in a week or so, we're going to put early bird tickets on sale. And so with that, the early bird tickets are $300. And that gets you to the 4-day festival, all meals included. So once you rock up, then there's no money. You're just there to do workshops all day in a beautiful location, upskill, learn, play my level up game. You create your avatar based on one of 6 factions. So you can be an artist, you can be an engineer, you can be a farmer, you can be a healer, you can be a scout or an administrator. So you pick your area that you want to sort of develop in. You do workshops, you upskill, and yeah, it's gonna be very participatory. It's not about going and being entertained, but it's actually coming and helping us finish the build and doing workshops and actually have a lot of experiential learning. So we want to actually have a finished construction building thing that we actually achieve over the time we're there. And then that spills out into a lot of other real world projects back in society as well. So that's another huge thing. And then Meta Events as well is another company that I'm now the creative director of. And that's basically looking at a platform that helps people plan. It's an event management tool essentially, but it goes right from the beginning, basically right through from assessing land to see where's a good place to run a festival, through to getting council approval, through to staff hiring, logistics, designing the layout of the festival itself. And then it's a virtual reality archive as well. So you can actually upload video and photo content, and people that weren't there can revisit it through VR goggles and go back to the festival and stuff like that. So that's another project that I'm working on. We're doing fundraising at the moment and getting sponsorship investment, and that'll be launching for the festival season at the end of this year. So yeah, that's keeping me busy at the moment. What's that?
Your bucket is full of butterflies.
It is, man. Yeah. And at the same time as well, trying to keep my own practice in, I really feel for me, martial arts is the way. It's something that I find so beautiful. It's the way you approach every single day. It's not, we can be very objective oriented or progress oriented or goals outcome oriented in this current society. And I think that there's a beautiful wisdom, which we all know, it's the journey, it's not the destination, but martial arts really brings that home. So for me, in amongst all that as well, it's taking the time to do my physical practice each day, to do breath work, to set intentions. And I think that sort of brings the full balance. So I'm really excited to continue evolving. I think, I'm not at my peak yet. I want to be fitter, stronger, and extend things through, I called it PHASM, which was Post-Human Academy for Superheroes, Aliens, and Mutants. And it's basically like superhero school. So it's training things like telepathy and telekinesis and things like that. So that's like a little personal project to play with as an extension of martial arts. So yeah, man, lots of butterflies.
Amazing. The thing you mentioned about martial arts, and yeah, definitely the body, mind, mastering both of those. I find a lot of martial artists have their shit together. It's like why I'm practicing, I'm practicing jiu-jitsu at the moment, super new, but also been practicing qigong. It's just like having that body, breath, mind connection just definitely spills out into other areas of your life and makes you so much more aware and present and able to control your body and solve problems. The problem solving aspect of it all is humongous. So beautiful. I can totally relate to that.
And I think it's so important to have that really lovely concept of discipline and control. Like, it doesn't have to be controlling or restrictive or hard or unpleasant. I think that martial arts is a great way to understand the beauty of discipline and the service as well. It's an act of service to follow a particular martial arts path. And I think that it also helps us understand the different components of ourselves. I feel, can not necessarily conceive of ourselves of, oh, I'm just an arty flow person, or I'm just an organized person. We have these different components, just as we have, the spiritual consciousness, we've got the mind, we've got the body, and who knows what other components that we're not aware of. We are a conglomerate. And I think that by dealing in both, it helps us exercise different aspects of ourselves. So if we're, artistic and creative and spiritual, it allows us to be the idea, the cognitive, conscious psychonaut. But then also we do have this physical component. And I think therefore having the physical health, the discipline, the exercise, the repetition, often in martial arts as well, helps us embody the more physical, the tangible, the mechanical, the corporal, which is a facet of ourselves. So I think it's good to be able to be more than just one embodiment of self.
Yeah, definitely be multifaceted and rounded and holistic rather than just like that one dimension. I feel is an aspect that it definitely helps. So it's helped me. And you look at, and it's a fun thing. It's a game, we play jiu-jitsu, we play when we're sparring, with playfulness, so, and that, your ability to play that at a high level and actually stick to it and have that discipline, long term with it is going to spill over into the rest of your life as well. So how we do one thing is how we do all things. It's not always the case, but it's a nice little idea to try on. And I guess I'm a big fan of it, because it's anything that you do is going to that gives you benefit is you're going to be. Yes, I love that.
Mastery. Yeah, mastery, man. Like you say, how you do anything is how you do everything, and it does relate to everything. I think that there's a commonality. Not that I'm necessarily a master at anything, but the path of mastery, to come to an intimate understanding of something, you can start off as a student feeling like you're pursuing a particular path created by someone else. But at some point, you feel like it's your own. You feel like, oh, I can be the author of this path now. I can be the source of it. I don't have to study acting or freestyling, whatever. I can actually teach it or just do it like an instinct. And I think that when you understand something that intimately, you actually understand the component parts or the foundations, which then become universal. So, I mean, I don't know if this is necessarily like proven.
Yeah. It's like
which might not be true and proven. Are you, so you say?
It's like learning the principles. Like that's what I love about the martial art as well. It's like you learn a bunch of principles. Yeah, there's technique, but when you learn overarching principles and the foundation basics, then it's applicable over so many different areas as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So by mastering one thing, you understand everything. Yeah.
Super cool. Well, you were about to say you don't know if it's true.
Oh no, that was the idea. I was saying exactly what you said, which was that if you come to a intimate understanding of one thing right down to its basic atoms, that would then become universal. And those concepts, though not specific to other practices or other areas of life, they would have relevance, because you get to this. We're talking about earlier, complexity versus simplicity. When you come down to simplicity, it can apply to everything, because there's certain foundational concepts which hold true throughout, many different facets of human endeavor.
Beautiful. And finally, is there anything that you would like to leave us with, a question, a concept, an idea? Just a little final thoughts.
I think for me going forward, I guess, that's my interest is, and that's actually why I'm wearing black at the moment. And I looked at the idea of chaos as an extension of play. So that's kind of where my head is at the moment. For many years, I've been wearing lots of colors and championing play. And now I'm looking at the idea of the unknown, of the black hole, of the unnamed. The black hole, I see it as to be full of potential without having solidified down to one thing. So that's kind of where I'm exploring at the moment, and looking at death as not necessarily a negative thing or a dark thing. And a beautiful practice that I did around this thing called EXO, which was a creative challenge. And one of them was to write your own epilogue or epigraph, your own statement after your life. And I think for me, I don't know, there's something really inspiring about that, is to reflect on your life and what story you hope to have told. Was your life a story worth telling? And I think that you pretty quickly come to realize that if you try and write an epilogue. So yeah, that's something that I'd encourage, is to for us to look, and that brings in the authorship. The artistic element is realizing you are writing a story, and sometimes it's purely just the effort or the attempt at greatness that is worth telling about. In all honesty, I don't know how significant humanity is. I don't know if we really matter at all. Like, maybe we're just another blur, another blip on the map of the evolution of this planet. And so I think it's important to really have enough humility to let go of all the stress that we attach to so many of our daily activities, to be kinder to ourselves and to those around us, and come back to the big picture and just see what beautiful hero you would like to be in your story. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm playing with at the moment, and looking at ways to enable the chaos to have me arrive at unexpected and amazing places that I wouldn't otherwise have come to know.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, brother. Thanks for sharing. We'll do it again sometime, I'm sure.
Absolutely, man. No, thank you so much, and so much respect for the amazing contributions you continually make. I see with the Flow Zone, you're continually putting philosophy and quotes and inspiration. You're doing your 7-day challenges. You're just unrelenting, man. And then like this podcast as well, you're reaching out. You're bringing people like myself and so many others. So thanks for all your contributing to this overall movement of self-improvement, of expansion, and making flow something that makes sense in the modern world.
Amazing.
So much respect. Thank you, brother.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Big love.
We'll end it there. Till next time, brother.
Cool, brother. Much love. Thanks, brother.